close friend of mine who is more like a brother lives in Connecticut. And he showed me a picture of his beautiful mother I knew who had died years ago. She's been gone for years now. And my friend told me about the difference his mom had made in the city he lives through the family she raised and the extended family of which she is such a precious part. How do we remember the loved ones who have died through the passage of time? A columnist for the Los Angeles Jewish Journal wrote a relevant article, something for us to think about as we recall our mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, siblings, children, relatives, and friends during this Yizkor hour. Marlene Adler Marks wrote, and I quote, "My friend Jane and I met for dinner last week, and we had a good laugh about death. California's political campaign was just commencing, and we were discussing in an offhand way what my husband might have made of the upcoming elections were he still with us. Without quite knowing what I meant, I said, 'It's amazing that he's still dead. I can't believe he's still dead.' And simultaneously," she writes, "Jane and I let out a roar, a yipes of astonishment, as people do when they touch something hot or come too close to what the Kabbalists call the other side, the Sitra Atra. 'It's a bore, isn't it?' Jane said, rising to the occasion. 'Still dead after all this time.' Jane's father is still dead too. Harold died years ago of a painful illness. He was a large, strapping football player who exuded robust physicality and wisdom, one of those men who add extra wattage to the earth's light. 'It's impossible that he's really gone,' Jane said. 'I want to say to my father, enough already. I've learned to live without you. I'm not mourning anymore. It's safe for you to come back.' She continued, 'It's been 11 years now. The purple blossoms of the tree in our yard no longer assault my eyesight as they did right after the funeral. Our daughter Samantha has burst out of childhood and she's driving a car. The icicles of loss don't shiver down my grieving back anymore. And husband Burton himself is ancient history. He died before Facebook, Instagram, and the phones we're addicted to. It's as if we're living in two different worlds, Burton and I, the before and the after. The dead don't grow or expand their horizons, but they do call to us in their own time. Our modern world, of course, is notoriously uncomfortable about death, but not Judaism. The washing of the body, the sitting with the corpse, the acknowledgement that this end will also be ours. All we've done in our modern world is suppress the truth. It's often easier to hurt for the grieving families. We at Temple send bereavement notices out about almost weekly here, than to serve the memory of our own and come as you have or as you're watching. I marvel at our Jewish way and the tales that give death the power and the majesty that it is due. I want to share with you one story, a famous story of the 19th century Rabbi Low in Eastern Europe, who tried to subvert the angel of death. One day, the angel of death came into Rabbi Low's town right around the time of our next Yizkor service, Yom Kippur. The angel of death carried with him a long scroll on which was inscribed the names of all those members of the synagogue who were going to die in the coming year. And the Rabbi Lo, confronted the angel of death and tore from his hands the scroll. He tore off the list. He threw the parchment into the fire. Almost every single one in Rabbi Lo's town was saved, but only one name was left on the scroll. It was his own name, Rabbi Lo. He knew what the odds were, but at least he went out fighting. That's a better way to go than the way many humans go, denying, avoiding, procrastinating, pretending as if death were someone who only visited other people, never us. My friends, Marlene Adler Marks is right. There is a wall between the dead and the living. Once they're dead, they are never the same. They don't know about email or all the other things about which we know that have been invented since their time. We do live on two different planes, I believe, with her, the before and the after. And there can be no denying this hard fact. In our minds, they are still dead, even after all these years. But nevertheless, a couple of times a year in Jewish time, they come back and visit with us, just as I hope your loved ones do when you go home today, like the wind at your back. But as a community, even for just this hour, they can live in our hearts. 4 times a year, including today's Yizkor, they can be in our consciousness as we hear their name, say those words of Kaddish we said on that sad day when they were buried. They can be in our consciousness when we realize that we have reached another Shavuot, another birthday, another milestone in our lives since then. They can come back for a reunion with us when we think about how we have changed, what we have done, and who we have become since their deaths because of their spirit and undying love. By dedicating a moment like this on a Wednesday morning to their memory, we can teach ourselves the reality of death and the reality of our own future death, which everyone knows up here in our heads, but which no one really believes down here in our guts. And by dedicating, as we do at Temple, this Yizkor hour to them, we can do one more thing. We can teach those who will be our heirs, our children and our grandchildren, and our friends and our nephews and nieces. We can teach them what lasts and what doesn't. We can give them an annual lesson in respect, an annual report on how we are living, on how we are grieving, on how we are recovering, on how we are somehow moving forward. We can teach those who will come after us in the only way that anyone ever teaches anything, by example, how we want to be treated after we depart this earth. It's amazing that he's still dead after all these years. Marlene Adler Marks said to her friend Jane that day in the LA restaurant, "It's true. It's hard to believe that those whom we love so much are really gone. But it's even more amazing than that, is that they're still alive after all these years. If only we open our minds and hearts to their presence, if only we continue to bring honor and pay tribute to them as we do right now with Yizkor, which begins on page 500.